Hey, what is up guys, we will YouTuber here back with another video, and YCS Providence has come to a close. Karakuri Geargias win the event. Chris LeBlanc, congratulations to him. The deck profile isn't particularly innovative in any way. I do like the main deck Thunder King Ryos, which is sort of standard nowadays anyway, and the one copy of Genix Alley Birdman, because it allows you to reuse your Geargiano MK2. But other than that, it's very standard. But what made it for him, I believe, is the side deck. Because it is extremely anti-meta, which it ought to be. That's what a side deck is. In any case, let's look at the deck profile. So he's got one copy of Karakuri Strategist and two copies of Saizan. They're both tuners, of course, but you're mainly using him to change the battle position of Geargia Armor to plus of him all the more. Three copies of Geargia Accelerator. Two copies of Geargiano MP2. For those who don't actually use this guy, when he's normal or flip summoned, you can special summon a Geargia from your hand or graveyard in face of defense position. So you can basically use him when you detach with Geargia and X, a Geargia Armor. You can use it to special summon it again, flip it back down, flip it back up, get its effect, blah blah blah. All that jazz, you know. Three copies of Geargia Armor, of course, the staple. This card is just amazing, especially in a Karakuri engine. I was a little surprised that usually in a Karakuri engine you have three copies of Beret in the extra deck, and you'll bring out the tuner several times in a continuous loop, and you keep flipping up the Geargia Armor, you keep plussing off, and you eventually get three Berets on the field, and then you overlay for Lucky Straight. Not really. Three copies of Geargia Arsenal. I'm not sure about three copies, but I've been worked from hell. Like, who am I to argue with it? I think the card can be kind of dead in the hand at times, especially if you're not running Machina Fortress or any of that kind of stuff. One copy of Genix Alley Birdman, as I've said, two copies of Thunder King Ryo, two copies of Effect Failure, and one copy of Gorz the Emissary of Darkness. Nobody ever says it's the full name anymore, but I think it's just so cool. As for the spells and traps, we have three copies of MST. That is another thing, possible contributor to his victory. Just the back row hate that he has throughout, the deck basically. One copy of Heavy Storm, more back row hate. One copy of Dark Hole, Book of Moon, Mind Control, Forbidden Lance, Pot of Avarice, and Monster Reborn. I never like putting Forbidden Lance in one copy. I think Forbidden Lance is a strategy in and of itself, and then if you're going to run it, you should run it in multiples. But that's just me. Two copies of Bottomless Trap Hole, two copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device, two Solemn Warning, two Fiendish Chain, one Torrential Tribute, and one Starlight Road. This deck, unlike the last Karakuri deck, or Geargia deck rather, to top at YCS, has far less traps. I believe the last deck had 15 traps. This deck only has 10 traps. However, the last deck also only had 15 monsters, and this deck has 20 monsters, so it's much more heavy on the monster count. Field presence obviously much more important to the deck, and it wasn't kind of random either. I mean, if you look at Thunder King Ryo, of course, one of the best level 4 monsters in the game, and it just so happens that all of the Geargia monsters and the two Karakuri Saizans are also level 4. So you can definitely imagine him overlaying with Thunder King Ryo in a pinch when he didn't particularly want to, use him. He might have had a Geargia Armor on the field that he couldn't search with because Thunder King Ryo was on the field. So he would overlay it with something, and then he'd flip up the Geargia Armor, get the search, whatever. I mean, you can definitely think of examples. Also, he opened up synchro plays with Effect Failure as well as Saizan and Strategist. So you can definitely think of reasons why he would have a heavier monster count. The Gorz was just about allowed into the deck, in my opinion, because the back row that he has will go away pretty fast, apart from the Fiendish Chains, and there were only two of those. Plus, he has a lot of traps in his side deck, which he could have sided out. As for the side deck, he has two copies of Gemini Imps, two copies of Snowman Eater. Gemini Imps against Windups and Dark Worlds, respectively, I suppose. Snowman Eater against a lot of things, because everyone's maining Thunder King Ryo nowadays. It's also still good against Rabbit, but there's only one Rabbit deck in the top 16. I think Rabbit is sort of dying now, pretty much. Two Fossil Dynas. Fossil Dyna is level 4 as well, so he definitely has synergy with the deck. So I can definitely think of examples where he could be useful. Just any deck like Windups that likes to swarm. In fact, I'm just going to say Windups, because Windups were topping. I think they took 6 out of the top 16 places, yet only 1 out of the top 8 places. So, you can just see how Windups are maybe falling out of form as well. One copy of System Down for those mirror matches. So, that card is just ridiculous. I don't know why people... In fact, I don't know why Geargias have done so well if that card is around. Two copies of Shadow Bristling Mirror against, I don't know, Chaos Dragons, Dark Worlds, anything that uses dark monsters, basically. Just completely shuts the decks down. Two copies of Trapstun. I found that particularly interesting. I mean, Geargias can't really go for an OTK, and Trapstun, the only time I ever really use Trapstun is if I were, moving in that direction. However, I can definitely see advantages to this card. I mean, you start your turn, you draw your card, and your opponent you go, would you like to activate a card at the end of my draw phase? And they're like, no, okay, then I'll activate Trapstun. And then you summon all your monsters, no Solemn Warnings, no bottomless trap holes, nothing you have to worry about. And all you need sometimes is one turn to set up. And remember, you still have your back row from that turn. You just don't intend to use it. So, I don't know if this guy ever actually sided in the Trapstuns, but if he did, I'm sure they did okay. 2 Rivalry of Warlords, because he pretty much has machines. He could side out the Thunder Kings quite easily for them. 2 copies of Macrocosmos, because Macrocosmos, apart from the Thunder Kings and the Valors, wouldn't really affect his deck. And of course, he could easily side those out as well. Perhaps the predictable siding option would be siding in 2 Rivalries and 2 Macrocosmos, siding out 2 Thunder Kings and 2 Effect Valors. That's entirely possible. In fact, he might have put in those supplementary monsters just so that he could side them out for other things if possible. And of course, on their own, they were still actually quite decent. The extra deck is pretty standard. Rank 3s, Zen-Mains, and Tempo. Rank 4s, 2 Geargan X's, Maestroke, Utopia, Papiloperative, Steelswarm Roach, and Shockmaster, which he said in the interview he never actually got onto the field. Which surprises me, because getting 3 level 4 monsters on the field in Geargias is just as easy as in windups. Well, not quite as easy, but it's still pretty easy. As for the Synchros, Black Rose, 2 Berets, 1 Beredo, 1 Scrap Dragon, and 1 Stardust Dragon. So, talking about the deck again, I quite like the build because it's aggressive. It has 3 copies of MST. I think Compulsory Evacuation Device is a staple in this current format, because there are so many XYZ monsters around that can basically just fuck you up, and there's not really a lot you can do about it. Solemn Warning is falling out of favour, but people are still deciding to run it. Phoenix Chain also slows a lot of decks down. You'd be surprised how many decks get screwed over by one monster's effect being negated and it's being unable to attack. Yes, it's a problem that's everywhere. As for the Karakuri engine, there's not really much to say about it. It's small, but it's efficient. It'll get the job done. The Genesis Ali Birdman, where would he use that? Well, I can think of a couple of examples. Let's say, for example, I don't know, you flip your Geargia armor and someone goes Effect Vader, you're like, okay, bounce him for Birdman, set the Geargia armor again, and then you've kind of restored the balance. They -1 off it, you don't. And yeah, all is good. He tributes, so that doesn't matter. Geargia Excel Special summons from the hand. I guess Birdman just provides options when you want to synchro into a level 7. That is the main reason I would probably think of using him. So, everyone seems to be running Birdman now. Heraldic Dragon's running Birdman. Atlanteans are or will be running Birdman. So, lots of love for Birdman. The rest of it is pretty standard, and to be honest, I'm rambling at this point. The side deck I have talked about, so I'm just going to finish the video there. Congratulations to Chris LeBlanc for winning with his Karakuri Geargias, and I hope to see more decks like this in the future. He's not exactly mixing it up, as I've said, but it's still an interesting deck and an interesting archetype, and hopefully it will do well and win more YCS events in the future. We don't want to see windups winning everything, and Mega Capital G did call it. He did say that Karakuri Geargias, or Geargias in some way, shape or form, were going to win YCS Providence. So there you go. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate and subscribe. Let me know what you think of this deck. I'll be uploading more duel videos soon. I have a couple of videos coming up. I was going to put up a video relating to the tins again, but X-Saber Souza as the final super rare card isn't even news in my opinion. It's just stupid. It shouldn't be the case. Anyway guys, that is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you guys later. Peace.